Hi, I'm Bakhtiar Sanov and you are watching AnewZ. Here are the headlines. AnewZ has obtained exclusive photos of Azerbaijani Airlines plane, further confirming that the aircraft was subjected to external interference. Mike Johnson has been re-elected as Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives after a tense vote. Turkey aims to bolster European energy security, Turkish energy minister says. AnewZ has obtained exclusive photos of Azerbaijani Airlines plane that tragically crashed near Aktau in December 2024. The images, including interior shots of the aircraft fuselage, clearly depict signs of damage consistent with external interference. In particular, shrapnel impact marks are clearly visible, casting serious doubts on initial theories, such as a bird strike or gas tank explosion. According to Azerbaijani government sources, preliminary investigations suggest that the aircraft was struck by a missile fired from a Russian Pantsir-S air defense system while approaching Grozny. Earlier, Digital Development and Transport Minister Rashad Nabiev confirmed that a rocket attack had occurred, though the type of missile remains under investigation. On his part, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev stated that the aircraft was unintentionally shot down by Russian air defenses over Russian territory. President Ilham Aliyev demanded a full admission of guilt, punishment for those responsible, and compensation for the victims and their families. The investigation continues as authorities seek definitive answers. After a tense vote, Mike Johnson has been re-elected as Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, a key position in American politics. Johnson, who took office amid Republican turmoil in 2023, now faces significant challenges, including managing the United States' $36 trillion tax debt, tax cuts, and immigration reform.
Mike Johnson, a Louisiana lawmaker, was re-elected Speaker of the U.S. House after a closely contested vote. He secured 218 votes, the bare minimum needed, following last-minute negotiations and a call for support from President-elect Donald Trump.
We have a mandate, and that was shown in the election cycle. The people want an America First agenda. They do. Sadly, for the past 4 years of divided government, too many politicians in Washington have done the opposite. Open borders and overregulation have destroyed our cities and stifled innovation. Inflation and weak leadership have left Americans poorer, and they have placed our country in a perilous position. That's right.
Johnson's leadership has been challenged by conservatives within his party, particularly over his reliance on Democrats to pass essential legislation. Last year, Trump pushed House Republicans to scrap a government funding deal unless it also included a debt ceiling increase. A revised bill, which excluded Trump's demand, passed just hours before a shutdown deadline. However, it received more backing from Democrats than Republicans, further highlighting Johnson's struggle to maintain party unity.
In coordination with President Trump, this Congress will give our border and immigration enforcement agents the resources that they need to do their job. We will secure the border, we will deport dangerous, criminal, illegal aliens, and finally finish building the border wall.
This re-election highlighted deep divisions within the Republican Party, which holds a slim 219 to 215 majority in the House. Johnson, who was unexpectedly thrust into the role in 2023, now faces significant challenges, extending Trump's 2017 tax cuts, addressing the U.S.'s growing $36 trillion debt, and rolling back regulations.
Citizens across the United States are concerned about the possibility of further attacks as they implement measures to enhance national security. With recent incidents raising alarm, officials focus on strengthening strategies to protect citizens and prevent future threats.
Cities across the U.S. are starting this year with high alert security, following the Bourbon Street attack in New Orleans and the vehicle explosion outside a Trump hotel in Las Vegas. Such incidents have caused more fear of threats in a month packed with large-scale public events, including former President Jimmy Carter's state funeral on January 9th and President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration on January 20th. The Sugar Bowl in New Orleans was postponed by 1 day due to the attack, resulting in enhanced security measures with detection dogs utilized at the event. In New York, there was enhanced security outside of Trump Tower, key train stations like Penn Station, and several other venues across the city. Meanwhile, before the anniversary of the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, the FBI released new footage of the unsolved pipe bomb case. The suspect placed 2 pipe bombs near the Capitol before the attack, but police deactivated them. The FBI has received over 600 tips and offered a $500,000 reward, but after 4 years, they still have not identified the suspect.
Central Warsaw turned into a protest venue as protesters demonstrated against the European Union's trade policies. Demonstrators accused the bloc of pursuing trade strategies that would harm the interests and needs of Polish farmers.
A large-scale protest erupted in central Warsaw as farmers' organizations rallied against the European Union's trade and agriculture policies. The demonstration, organized by Poland's Alliance of Agricultural Organizations near the European Commission's representation in Poland. Protesters carried Polish flags and banners as they marched through the streets, voicing their discontent. The protest targeted several EU policies, including the Mercosur trade agreement, the Green Deal, imports from Ukraine, and concerns over the management of Polish forests and hunting. Demonstrators argued these policies were detrimental to Poland's agricultural sector. The head of Poland's Institute of National Remembrance and a presidential candidate from the ruling Law and Justice Party addressed the crowd stating his support for Polish farmers.
I will cherish Polish farmers, of course, and I'm standstill in this case, which Polish agriculture is very important for Polish economy.
Polish Agriculture Minister Czesław Siekierski also commented on the protest, stating that he expects the farmers to present detailed demands. He reaffirmed the Polish government's opposition to the Mercosur agreement on agricultural issues and emphasized ongoing efforts to build a blocking minority within the EU to prevent its adoption.
France's military presence in Africa is coming to an end, as many nations on the continent strive to consolidate their independence. Countries such as Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger and Chad have openly called on the French government to withdraw its troops. These developments have compelled France to reassess its influence in the region.
Since 2022, there has been a marked reduction in France's military presence in Africa. This process began with the termination of military cooperation in Mali, followed by the closure of French bases in Burkina Faso and Niger. More recently, Chad and Ivory Coast have taken steps to ensure the full withdrawal of French troops. Chad's president, Mahamat Idriss Déby Itno, announced that French forces would leave the country by 31st January 2025. Similarly, the leaders of Senegal and Ivory Coast have expressed their determination to end the presence of foreign troops within their borders. Paris-based journalist and strategy expert Leslie Varenne has described France's withdrawal from Africa as a defeat. She argues that the Barkhane operation in the Sahel region failed to meet its objectives and that France was unable to ensure security in the area. Varenne also highlights that political coups in several African countries have hastened this process.
I believe Emmanuel Macron is a president who manages international relations in much the same way as he governs the country, that is, in a rather authoritarian manner. He makes decisions on his own, does not measure the difficulty of complex situations, does not consult those who understand the issues well, and take authoritarian steps, even with his African counterparts. This approach has had significant consequences. We saw it again with Chad's unexpected decision to cancel its cooperation agreement with France. Authoritarianism no longer works anywhere in the world, particularly in Africa and the Middle East. French diplomacy has always regarded itself as representing an indispensable country, but this perspective has shifted in recent years.
France now plans to maintain its military presence exclusively in Djibouti, where 1,500 troops are stationed. This base holds strategic importance in East Africa. President Emmanuel Macron has announced that the Djibouti base will serve as a projection point for France's overseas operations. Across Africa, leaders are making increasingly autonomous decisions, reshaping their priorities for regional security and development. The withdrawal of French forces has enabled many nations to craft their own national strategies. As African nations strengthen partnerships with new allies, French influence in the region continues to decline. A prominent opposition figure in France, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, has urged the government to move beyond its colonial past and establish a new model for relations with Africa. This approach seeks to build partnerships based on mutual respect, embodying a forward-looking vision for France's engagement with the continent.
Russian forces have intensified attacks near Pokrovsk in eastern Ukraine, aiming to disrupt supply routes and bypass the city. Meanwhile, both sides reported drone activity, with Ukraine intercepting Russian drones and Russia claiming to have downed Ukrainian ones.
Russian forces continue their attacks near the Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk, seeking to bypass it from the south and disrupt supply routes to Ukrainian troops, officials in Kiev reported. Control of this strategic road and rail hub in the eastern Donetsky region could severely impact Ukrainian operations on the Eastern Front, while enabling Russia to strengthen and extend its front line westward. The Pokrovsky direction remains the hottest spot. The Russians launched 34 attacks in the past 24 hours, attempting to breach our defenses south of Pokrovsky, said Viktor Trehubov, spokesman for Ukraine's Kortitsia group of forces, during a national television broadcast. Meanwhile, Ukrainian air defenses successfully intercepted 34 out of 81 drones launched by Russia overnight, according to the Ukrainian Air Force. They noted that 47 drones were lost, referring to Ukraine's use of electronic warfare to divert the drones from their targets. Pokrovsk, home to a key mine supplying cooking coal to Ukraine's steel industry, had a pre-war population of approximately 60,000, with an estimated 11,000 residents remaining. Trehubov said Russian forces are deploying small groups of soldiers to settlements south of the city in an effort to disrupt supply routes. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry reported that its air defense system shot down 10 Ukrainian drones over Russian territory, including 3 over the northern Leningrad region.
Turkey aims to become a major player in the European energy security. That's according to Energy Minister Alparslan Bayraktar. His statement comes after Russia's Gazprom halted gas transit through Ukraine.
Turkey is ready to play a larger role in securing Europe's energy future, especially after Russia's Gazprom seized natural gas transits through Ukraine. That is according to Energy and Natural Resources Minister Alparslan Bayraktar. In an interview with Japan-based media outlet Nikkei Asia, Turkish Energy Minister Alparslan Bayraktar emphasized Turkey's potential to become a crucial energy hub for Europe, particularly for natural gas supplies. He suggested that with the political willingness and commitment from European nations and additional investment in interconnections, Turkey could increase its gas exports to Central and Eastern Europe by up to 10 billion cubic meters annually, leveraging the Balkan pipeline route. Bayraktar's remarks come after the expiration of a 5-year natural gas transit agreement between Gazprom and Ukraine's Naftogaz on January the 1st. The agreement's end has shifted regional energy dynamics as Gazprom halted gas flows through Ukraine, leaving Turkey as a key player in energy supply. Additionally, Bayraktar pointed out that the Turk Stream pipeline, which opened in 2020, is now operating at full capacity, while Turkey also exports Azerbaijani gas to Europe through another pipeline.
Turkey is preparing to make a major shift in its trade and investment relations with Syria. That's according to Turkish Trade Minister Ömer Bolat. Speaking at the Turkey Experts Assembly meeting on Friday, Bolat emphasized that this new phase would focus on trade, investments and the reconstruction of Syria. Trade Minister Ömer Bolat reminded that Turkey's trade with Syria was $1.8 billion in exports and $660 million in imports in 2011. By 2024, exports from Turkey to Syria reached $2.2 billion, while imports from Syria dropped to $438 million. He added that Turkey's free trade agreement with Syria was signed and approved in 2007, but it was suspended after civil war had begun in Syria in 2011. The minister revealed that now, in the new period, Turkey is completing preparations for both the free trade agreement and customs regimes in collaboration with Syrian authorities. Russia remains Armenia's top trading partner, as data provided by Armenia's Statistical Committee indicates that Russia's exports to Armenia surged by $5.6 billion to nearly $8.3 billion level during the first 10 months of 2024. At the same time, Armenia's trade turnover with the UAE grew more than fivefold, reigniting discussions about Yerevan's role as a major conduit for exports of Russian gold and diamonds to global markets. Armenia's domestic gold production, despite importance for local economy, accounts only for a fraction of the figures declared by Statistical Committee, further confirming the view that Yerevan has been instrumental in helping Moscow evade Western sanctions levied against it. In recent years, Armenia has emerged as a critical player in the export of Russian gold, a development that stands in stark contrast to the strained relations between Moscow and Yerevan. The tensions primarily stem from the Armenian government under Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, whose pro-Western policies have challenged traditional ties with Russia. However, geopolitical realities and economic imperatives appear to have created a pragmatic nexus in the gold trade. This intriguing dynamic raises important questions about the interplay of diplomacy, economics, and regional geopolitics. Joining us now is Vlad Olteanu, an EU affairs expert with whom we will explore this complex subject in depth. Thank you, Mr. Olteanu, for joining us tonight.
Good evening, and thank you for having me tonight.
Good evening. In your opinion, how did Armenia become a key channel for the exports of Russian gold, and what factors contributed to this development?
Well, it is clear that with the sanctions regime imposed on Russia by the European Union, but also by the United Kingdom and the United States, there were a number of routes that Russia explored in order to still maintain its commercial relations, despite the sanctions. It is also very clear from the data you just mentioned that Armenia was probably quite helpful, simply for the fact that the amount of trade there is absolutely huge, and the proportion of that trade which could reasonably have been thought by Armenia and brought from Armenia is minimal. So it is very clear that that is a sourcing place. It's a sourcing place probably also because Armenia probably try to play on the court of Moscow as well as on the court of the EU. So here it's the court of Moscow for sure, but also, as you mentioned, the Armenian Prime Minister tried to also play in the court of the EU as much as possible. Now, I don't think that the EU is unaware of what's happening there, nor do I think that the EU institutions are happy with bypassing sanctions imposed by the European Union.
So what role does the gold trade play in the economies of both Russia and Armenia?
Oh, I think it is fundamental. I mean, looking again at the billions that you mentioned, and if we would look at those billions over the GDP of Armenia, so how much of that GDP is that part of gold and diamonds, it is clear that this is prominent. It is extremely high. I think for Russia, although it may not be extremely high, I still think that Russia hydrocarbons exports are going much higher than that. It is a very important source of revenues, of course. So I think the whole bypass of sanctions is an interplay in between one intermediary, Armenia, who receives probably part of the money, and Russia, who bypasses sanctions and increases its foreign currency reserves during a war situation.
So, despite tensions between the two governments, why has economic cooperation, especially in this sector, persisted or even grown?
I think you pointed it very right. It's an economic situation, so it's money related, probably. Both of them needed that. Russia needed to bypass sanctions. They did it in a number of ways. This is one of them. At the same time, Armenia needed probably cash, needed foreign currency to maintain an economic situation which is not great otherwise. So to maintain that, well, you need foreign currency. Russia needs also foreign currency. So it's a win-win situation for both parties from an economic point of view. From a political point of view, I could see it also as a bit of a payback. Probably the fact that the prime minister was pro-European was not necessarily very liked in Moscow either. So I think on one hand, Moscow insisted probably on a show from the Armenians that actually they can still cooperate with Moscow.
So how is Armenia's involvement in Russian gold exports perceived domestically, both politically and by the public?
This is a very, very good question. I can respond probably more on to how it would be perceived, and it is perceived in the EU. And clearly, as I mentioned, EU is clearly not happy with any of the countries who bypass sanctions or who help Russia bypass sanctions. So in this case, very probably the EU institutions are not happy with what Armenia is doing. Domestically, I think it should be a source of tensions for the simple reason that at the end of the day, the countries in that area need to make choices. And seen from the EU, for instance, you see a Georgia moving more towards Moscow, and you are seeing an Armenia who is not sure of what Armenia is doing. In the way that, is it pro-European, but then why bypass sanctions? Or is it pro-Russian, and then yes, bypass sanctions? So it's a very difficult speech there.
Mr. Olteanu, thank you very much for speaking to AnewZ. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That was Vlad Olteanu, an EU affairs expert. Tensions are escalating in South Korea as authorities struggle to execute an arrest warrant for impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. Thousands of protesters gathered in Seoul while the government faces resistance from Yoon's security service after a failed attempt to arrest him.
South Korean authorities are once again pressing for cooperation in executing the arrest warrant for impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. The country's Corruption Investigation Office for High-Ranking Officials has requested that acting President Choi Sang-mok, who is also the finance minister, order the Presidential Security Service to comply with the warrant. The earlier attempt was thwarted by the Security Service, along with military troops, leading to a tense 6-hour standoff at Yoon's residence in Seoul. The warrant stems from Yoon's declaration of martial law on December 3rd, which was quickly revoked by the National Assembly. Yoon now faces charges of insurrection and treason following his impeachment on December 14th and is awaiting a ruling from the Constitutional Court. Meanwhile, protests from both sides continue. Thousands rallied in support of Yoon near his residence, while opponents also demonstrated, calling for accountability. Police blocked the anti-Yoon protesters' march towards the residence. The legal proceedings continue as the Constitutional Court is set to deliberate over Yoon's impeachment, with the outcome potentially taking up to 6 months to resolve. If found guilty, Yoon could face permanent removal from office.
Chinese automaker BYD surpassed U.S. rival Tesla by delivering approximately 600,000 battery-powered vehicles between October and December. According to both companies' production and sales results for the year 2024, Tesla delivered 496,000 electric vehicles during the fourth quarter, while BYD delivered 595,000 units. However, for the whole year, BYD delivered 1.76 million EVs, slightly behind Tesla, which delivered 1.79 million. While Tesla increased its EV sales by 5% in the fourth quarter, BYD's EV sales increased by 13%. Meanwhile, with other types of sales, such as plug-in hybrid cars and buses, BYD delivered 4.3 million units of vehicles in 2024. Turkey's tourism industry seeks opportunities to diversify its offerings. The country, well known for summer resorts, now tries to make a name for itself as a unique place to visit during the winter holidays.
Turkey's ski resorts are welcoming many visitors as the country aims to diversify its tourism offerings and promote activities year-round to attract even more guests. Foreigners who visit Turkey often choose Palandöken, a popular ski resort located in the eastern province of Erzurum, due to its affordable prices. Palandöken is one of Turkey's key winter tourism destinations, attracting skiers of all skill levels. It hosts a large number of guests throughout the week, including on weekends. Local and foreign tourists enjoyed the resort's offerings, including skiing, snowboarding, sledding, a snow park, and zip lines. Yunus Kazır, a local visitor, mentions the snow quality in the ski resort was very good, emphasizing that the slopes in Palandöken are enjoyable.
I came to ski. I have fun and enjoy it. Palandöken is very beautiful. I come and ski with my friends whenever I have the chance. I can say that this place is a source of joy in Erzurum.
Situated approximately 20 kilometers from the airport and 4 kilometers from the city center, this destination features 5-star hotels, long international standard ski tracks, excellent snow quality, and beautiful natural surroundings, along with convenient transportation and accommodation for visitors.
That's all from us for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ.